good at asking very tough questions. I think we can put the mayor on the spot today, but maybe not. So our moderator is Philip Talon, Chief of Staff.
Wow.
And it's my pleasure to introduce, my honor, Mayor Thomas M. McDermott, Jr.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Before we get started, I want to introduce elected officials and thank them for being here. And I want to remind everybody, Phil Talon is my Chief of Staff, and he better not ask me tough questions, right? He's going to ask tough questions. I'm like, what? Thank you, Phil. It's good to see you.
You're going to be fine, Mayor.
I appreciate you. I want to start off, and this was Phil's idea, and I thought it was a great idea to invite CEOs from different organizations around the region, so I'm going to introduce them and thank them for being here, if you don't mind. First off, from Regional Development Authority, Sherry Ziller. Thank you very much for being here, Sherry. From the Northwest Indiana Forum, Heather Ennis. Thank you very much, Heather. From the Legacy Foundation, Kelly Anu. Thank you very much. From NERPC, Ty Warner. Thanks, Ty. From One Region, Matt Wells. Thanks, Matt. And from the School City Hammond, Superintendent Scott Miller. Thank you very much, Doctor. It's a great honor that a lot of my first off, 8 out of the 9 Hammond City Council people are here. So I'm going to introduce my bosses next, if you don't mind. Starting off with the Council President from the 6th District, which is Hessville, Scott Rakos. Thank you very much, Councilman. You're in the 1st District right now, the northern part of our city, and the Councilman of the 1st is Councilman Mark Kalwinski. Thank you very much, Councilman. From the 2nd District, Councilman Al Salinas III. Thank you very much, Councilman. From the 4th, Councilman Bill Emerson. Thank you very much, Councilman. From the 5th, Councilman Dave Warple. Thank you very much, Councilman. And 3 out of the 3 at-larges. First off, Councilwoman Katrina Alexander. Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Councilman Dan Spitali. Thanks, Councilman Dan. And of course, last but not least, Councilwoman Janet Venez. Thank you very much. A good friend of mine, well, first off, from Hammond also, she's a school board trustee, Trustee Carlotta Blake King. Thank you very much, Trustee King. A young lady that's been a friend of mine for a long time that lives in Winfield and decided to take a run for elected office. She's a Democrat, so a lot of people didn't give her credit, but a lot of people that don't know the tenacity Amy Blaker brings to the table. Let's give it up for Councilwoman Amy Blaker. My fellow mayors, thank you very much. A good friend of mine, Mayor Lake Station, Mayor Bill Carroll. Thank you very much, Mayor. Good to see you. She didn't shock the world. She didn't shock anybody in Michigan City, but she ran in Michigan City and ousted an incumbent mayor, Mayor Angie Nelson Doyce. Very good to see you, Mayor. It's his birthday today. He wanted me to mention that. And he also made sure to point out to me he's only 34, which makes him younger when he took office as mayor of Hobart than I was when I took over Hammond. So I give it up, Josh. You were younger than me, and you're a great man. Congratulations on being the mayor of Hobart. Good to see you. And happy birthday. I think I got everybody. So, thank you all for coming out for my 21st State of the City. I've been doing this for 21 years, longer than any mayor of the city of Hammond, and I'm honored that the guy that got me started in politics, my father, Mayor Thomas McDermott Sr. is here. Good to see you, Dad. Along with my family, sitting at the Latitude Commercial Real Estate table, right, Aaron? Thank you guys for being here. So good to see you, everybody. We used to do formal State of the Cities every year. It's required by law. Technically, mayors don't have to do it formally like this. Technically, the State of the City is supposed to be a public statement about the city finances. You have to do it once a year. Holy cow, my son's here. Good to see you, Chase. He was looking right at me. I can't miss that. The State of the City is required by law, but I do a mayor's report at every city council meeting, and technically that would qualify as the State of the City, but we do this nonetheless, and we also do it in front of the Lakeshore Chamber audience. I want to thank you all for being here because it's important to be in front of the business community so that you know what's going on, and because I support the Lakeshore Chamber of Commerce. Right, Phil?
Absolutely.
And I want to thank Bob Migliorini for taking the reins for the past year and rejuvenating this great organization and trying to get it back on its feet. And I really appreciate you, Bob. And I would be remiss if I didn't remind you that without the business donations to the Lakeshore Chamber, we don't have a Lakeshore Chamber. And I think Bob's doing a great job, and I know he needs a lot to help, so I promised that I would try to encourage everybody to rebuild this organization. So, you know, it's a powerful and important part of the city of Hammond, so it's good to see you guys and so many people here. So thank you very much. Phil and I met before this. There's no set list of questions, but we do have ideas of what we want to hit. We have exciting things happening in the city. We have challenges as well. And one of the things that's boring about a lot of state of the cities is usually you hear all the positive stuff and you don't really hear about any of the negatives. In this case, we're going to start off and talk about some of the problems that we're facing and the difficulties that the Hammond Council and I are facing right now. And I want to make it clear, you know, I've been mayor a long time and I learned something after my first term. I learned that you have to get along with the council to accomplish anything as mayor, and I've made it my point, and I'm not going to tell you we're all best friends, but typically, we vote with 7, 8, or 9 votes on almost every issue, and I think that's a testament to the hard work we do in Hammond. And I want to acknowledge in front of everybody in here that it's a team effort. I have a great staff, the administrators of the city, but without the Hammond Council's cooperation, we couldn't get anything done. So thank you very much to the Hammond City Council. I appreciate you guys very much. So.
Okay, Mayor, you ready
You get
to
all
have some?
the initial stuff out of the way?
Yeah, you did good.
Thanks.
You ready to have some fun?
Appreciate you.
Okay.
How long have you been chief of staff now?
15 years.
That was a pretty quick answer. It's like you're counting.
Well, and depending on
You've
the
been
question.
chief of staff for 15 years?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
City of Hammond, 15 years. Chief of staff for a little over 5.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been doing a great job. Honestly, it was a joke for a while that I cycled through chiefs of staff pretty quickly, and Phil has broken that trend. So he's done a great job. He's done, honestly, he does a great job, man. I appreciate you, Phil.
Depending on the questions I ask you, maybe this will be the last year.
If you're fired immediately after the event, something went wrong. I mean, it's a good thumb roll.
Absolutely. And honestly, Mayor, I just want to say that I'm excited you're here today because so many people told me, you know, you're supposed to be the Lake County Sheriff at this time. So I'm glad you're still in the spot.
I appreciate it.
They need to do their fact checking. And by the way, if new office furniture shows up to your office, that's going to be returned. That was a mistake. That's not, don't worry about that.
It's good that the Lake County Sheriff is going to be the Lake County Sheriff for the rest of the time. I know Oscar Martinez personally. He's a good person, and he's a hardworking sheriff, and I think he's doing a great job. Personally, I realize that's subject to interpretation, but I'm personally very happy that it's cleared up, the traffic violation is cleared up, and life is moving on. I'm personally very happy. I think he does a fine job for us.
Absolutely. So, Mayor, like you said, we're going to talk about some of the fun eco-dev projects that a lot of people, I think, are interested in, but let's talk about maybe a challenge first. Let's talk about gaming revenue.
Wow, off, huh?
Right off the bat.
Okay.
I mean, you talked a while ago that, you know, when the Hard Rock Casino was built, that it was going to, Horseshoe Casino was going to take a hit, and it has. And obviously, we get a lot.
We were threatened because I felt at the time, Phil, I felt that they were changing the rules. The state, were changing the rules. And quite frankly, there's an argument to be made that they changed the rules for Horseshoe in 2008 when we built what we call Moab. So I think that at that time when that proposal was presented, any mayor of Hammond would have to do what I did. I think that was my job, to do everything I could to try to keep the status quo. And I did, and some people felt I went over the top, and I subsequently lost an election for Congress shortly thereafter. So if that's true, I learned my lesson. But I think I did my job as mayor. And quite frankly, Phil, you know as well as I do that sort of our fears have sort of borne out. Is that true?
Correct, yes.
I mean, gaming revenue is an important part of our financing in city. I want to give it up for former Mayor Dwayne Didelo, who at the time made I think, and by the way, I see Dan Nita here. Thank you very much, Dan, and Bill Gustafson from Horseshoe Casino, partners in the city of Hammond. I appreciate you guys. I've known Bill for a few years. I've known Dan for 15 or so. They're good people, and they have a great product. I think Horseshoe is beautiful, and it's a great boat, and it's located perfectly, but sometimes in gaming, everybody wants to go to the new shiny thing. And the new shiny thing right now is Hard Rock, and Hard Rock has some advantages currently that our other boats don't have, other casinos don't have, about taxes and stuff that'll normalize in a year or so. But we were fearful that if the rules changed, it would affect the city of Hammond. I was afraid of that. I knew it would, actually, and it has. I mean, I'm not saying we're turning out the lights and, we can't move on. We have to move on, but it's harder when you're $7 million shorter than you were 3 years ago. And it's not going to change anytime soon. I hope it does, but we're planning on it not. So that's hard. And by the way, everybody knows that our costs are still just as high as they always have been. We're going into negotiations this year with police, fire, Teamsters, operating engineers, and the last time I checked, people want more money, a lot more money. Nobody's asking for 2,222 anymore. They want 10, 5, 3, 3, which is unsustainable for the city of Hammond. So we have a really challenging year ahead of us, 2024, real challenging. I've been mayor 21 years. This is probably one of my most challenging years, just because we are feeling the pinch of shrinking revenue. At the same time, we're coming out of this post-pandemic environment where everybody wants significantly more money. And it's another thing going on in police that I know the chief talks to me constantly about, Chief Andy Short. Thank you very much, Chief. There's another thing going on in police departments right now that we've never seen before, where police officers are literally shopping for new jobs. It was unprecedented when I first took office to see police officers with more than 5 or 6 years leave a department. Now, they are leaving departments left and right to make $10,000 more in another department. And now, each department is competing with each other to try to up the starting pay so that we don't lose our officers. And at the end of the day, first off, I am pro-police. I think police officers have the hardest jobs in America today. All right? But we are also one of the poorest cities in Indiana. We're not the poorest, but we have challenges. And it's a balance. And I hope that the FOP and the firefighters and the Teamsters and all the unions I have to negotiate with realize the challenges we're taking into these negotiations. I want to give them as much as I can, but I don't want to file for bankruptcy 2 years later because we can't afford the deal we made. So, yeah, we have, so it's sort of gloomy when you think about the gaming revenue and the fact that this may be the new normal. We're preparing as though it's a new normal. Right, Megan? We have to. Hopefully it gets better. All right? And I know Bill and Dan got a lot of things worked up, and hopefully a year from now we're like, holy crap, look what happened, right? But we do have positive things happen financially as well. The gaming revenue offset has been offset by a water revenue increase, right, Phil?
Absolutely. And that's something you've been talking about for years, how water is the future of Hammond.
Water is the future. Gambling is a luxury. This is not a luxury. Hammond is situated better than any city in America because our next door neighbor, Chicago, controls water for millions of people, and they sort of set the price, and we're cheaper than them. So people want our water. It's the same water. If we pump it out of Lake Michigan or if Chicago pumps it out of Lake Michigan, we put it through the same filters and the same tests. The water that ends up in the tap in downtown Chicago tastes just like the water ends up in my tap, except for my water is cheaper. So we have potential to sell massive amounts of water in the south side of Chicago, and we are. But right now, we're sort of tapped out. We're literally tapped out. So you may hear word coming from City Hammond that we think that another filtration plant is in order. And we want to be a major player in water on the south side of Chicago, and I think that's our future. But when I took over as mayor, and the water revenue, thank you to Jaime Prieto and Mark McLaughlin of the Hammond Water Department. I know you're here someplace. Oh, there you go. They supplied me with numbers that showed when I took over as mayor, the Hammond Water Department made about $7-8 million a year when I took over. And that's impressive. The Hammond Water Department now makes about $22 million a year. That's a massive amount of increase in revenue, mostly from Illinois. But we also increased the rates for Hammond residents because we had to do that to increase our rates for our customer communities in Indiana. Obviously, that wasn't easy. Raising rates for Illinois residents, I got sued in federal court multiple times. Obviously, in the city, in Northwest Indiana, raising water rates for all of our customer communities doesn't make me Mr. Popular when I go to restaurants around here. But at the end of the day, we've tripled water revenue since I've been mayor. It's about $22 million a year from about $7 million. So we are, thank you, appreciate it. And keep in mind, by the way, Hammond still pays for our kids' college education. Thank you. Hammond's College Bound Scholarship Program, run by Sharon Daniels. Thank you very much, Sharon. Good to see you. Has been in operation for 18 school years. In 18 school years, we've handed out 8,352 scholarships. 1,571 Hammond kids got their 4-year degrees through this program, and the city of Hammond has spent $55 million on scholarships since we started it. $55 million. So we do have challenges financially, but I point out, we pay for our kids' college education. That's a major challenge. This is something that Hammond Council and I budget for every year, and it's not a typical budget that is done by a municipal government. We do it because we believe it helps our home stock, and I think we shortly took over as Northwest Indiana's largest city after we did this program, and we're still there. So I think that it's money well spent.
Yeah, and Mayor, when you say 8,000 scholarships, that could be 4 scholarships per one student. So I don't want people to think
Right.
8,000 and 1,600 graduated. So that's clear.
Not every kid makes it through college, right? Unfortunately.
That's correct.
So like if a kid went to college, we give him a scholarship for the first year and he fails out, that's one scholarship. That's how we count it in here. 1,571 kids made it all the way through the program since we started it. So.
And we raised water rates, and I still believe Hammond is the lowest water rate in the entire state of Indiana.
We made sure of it, Phil.
Right.
When we raised water rates, we knew that people weren't going to love it. So we made sure that when we raised water rates, we raised it so that we were still the cheapest. And it was significant for us because it allowed us to raise rates on our customer communities, which got me sued again by multiple communities, and we got through that litigation. By the way, that's I think, you know, I'm an attorney. I don't spout it all the time. I think sometimes people forget, but I think one of the important things about being an attorney and mayor is it makes you not afraid of the legal system. I'm not afraid of the legal system. I understand the legal system, and sometimes you have to get sued to make things right. We got sued to make things right in our books, and it was a good lawsuit, you know, and so, anyway, I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, no. That's
I'm saying, don't beat up lawyers all the time. I guess that's the moral of the story, right?
Well, Mayor, you brought up the police earlier. Obviously, that's an issue across the country, not just in Hammond.
What's
as far
that,
as
policing?
Trying to recruit new
Yes.
police officers and losing current ones. But crime stats-wise, Hammond's doing really well. Yeah, sorry.
I've learned that trick with the police department. Right, Chief? Because I'll be like, dang, Chief, we're having a great year. And he's like, what are you doing? You're screwing it up right now. I learned a long time ago, you're not supposed to brag about stats from the police department. So thank you very much for that, but allow me to brag for a second. 2009 was the most violent year since I took over as mayor. Since 2009, crime is down 38%. Violent crime is down 38% since that time. Violent crime since 2006 is when we really started, these stats that I rely on and I see all the time, we started really tracking them closely in 2006. We have a metric broke out separately, what we call violent crime. Violent crime since 2006 is down 21%. I'm not going to sit here and crow because if you're a victim of crime, you don't want to hear this crap. You know, I'm like, hey, somebody broke into my house. I'm like, but crime is down 21%. And you're like, I don't care if crime is down 21%. Somebody broke into my house. So we don't brag too much, but I believe I have the best police department in the state. I really do. They're excellent. I'm partial to the Chiefs because their name is long and short. I think it's really cool. But Andy Short is an amazing police chief we're lucky to have, and Jeff Long is the amazing assistant chief of police, and we're lucky to have him. And they set the standard in the police department. So anyway.
So if you get pulled over on the way home, just say those names, and you'll be fine.
You're like, oh, the Short and Long told me.
Yes.
It's easy to remember. It's like a thumb rule.
All right. Mayor, let's talk about the largest investment going on in the city right now.
Yeah.
The Westlake Corridor Train Project.
I was going to say that. Good job.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, a lot of people look at Hudumaki, $100 million, the YMCA, $70+ million. And I mean, if you ask somebody what the largest project going in the city, I think that would be their answer. It is definitely the Westlake expansion. It's going right through the heart of our city. Being driven by NICD, and I know they're not here today, Mr. Nolan and NICD, being funded. Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mike. Nice to see you. That's Mike Nolan and NICD. Let's give it up for Mike and NICD. Mike, I apologize. Thanks for being here. NICD has been working closely with the city of Hammond from this conceptual idea that was the Gateway Station. And we've been working with the RDA, we've been working with the Congressman's office when it was Pete Visklowski, we're working with the Congressman's office now, and I'm estimating $200 million worth of activity on that one project alone going right through our city, and I think that's conservative. We're gonna end up with a train maintenance depot, we're gonna end up with 2 train stations, and then after the line starts running, we're building the downtown Hammond train station shortly thereafter. This is a massive project that's bringing in outside money and excitement into our downtown. I've been mayor 21 years, I've said it a couple of times already. Downtown Hammond has been the toughest part of our city to sell. It's hard to even put a second. So the fact that we're seeing this interest and investment from private money in downtown Hammond is not coincidental. I know why. They have, and I say this a lot, and I'm gonna say it again, I apologize if it's getting old, but it's confidence. My job is to instill confidence. When you're spending $200 million plus downtown, even if I was a crappy mayor, some would argue I am, but even if that was this case, you would still have confidence because if that much money is being spent in one part of the city, it's going to result in differences. So,
Yes, the entire project, by the way, obviously not all in Hammond, is $850 million. So it is one of the largest investments in the entire state of Indiana, and that doesn't include the double track project that's occurring as well.
I know the RDA and the Forum are doing so much right now for Northwest Indiana, and that's why I'm so happy to see both of them here today. But there was partnerships like I've never seen before to get this massive investment. Partnerships like I've never seen before, and it's happening. I don't know how often you get a chance to drive around the city, and it's the border between the 1st and the 2nd district, so Hammond residents sometimes, the weird thing about Hammond is people stick to their part of the city. So if you live in South Hammond, sometimes you don't go north hardly at all, but drive around, do it on a weekend when they're not working, it's amazing. You get lost in Hammond, I get lost, and I'm like, where am I again? Okay, and you start to find landmarks because everything's been cleared out. We're completely redefining between the 1st and the 2nd district. Downtown Hammond's going to be a positively affected part. So, and I know the Lakeshore Chamber's stationed there. So,
yeah, through the transit development districts, the first time ever, we have access to income tax dollars that we've never received in the past. And through the Forum, we're receiving ready dollars to help us there as well. So both of those are integral to what we're doing. The train goes right by 24 Marble Street.
Yes, 24 Marble Street. This is another project that's, I got to bust out my notes for this one.
I can help Mayor if you need me.
And glasses, by the way. I had to run out to my car because if I wanted to read anything. 24 Marble Street, which is right by where the Gateway Station is going to be, $35 million investment, 400,000 square foot spec building built on 24 acres, and it says underutilized site. That is the statement of the decade. It was not used at all. This site is hard to even get to in the city of Hammond. You have to go down a really craggy road, and then you have to go across a railroad track, and you think you're in Illinois. Even people from Hammond think they're in Illinois because you cross this railroad track, and you're over there anyway, and you're just, I am not in Hammond anymore. You are actually in Hammond. It's crazy. There was 15 acres just sitting there underutilized for decades. Just completely non-existent. This spec building being built there, all the tax advantages Indiana brings to the table is drawing interest. This spec building will be filled with a multi-million-dollar business, paying taxes into our city, employing people, and it's right there in the heart of the South Shore expansion. So,
we worked together with the IEDC. They also gave credits through their redevelopment program to help us with that. So it's always a team that gets those things done. Meets by Lynn's is very close to there as well, Mayor.
I would be remiss if I did not recognize my economic development team who's here, led by Ann Anderson. We got Juan Moreno, and we have Melissa Campbell. So good to see them all. Thank you very much. Meet by Lynn's is a little bit adjacent. It's adjacent to downtown. It's close enough to downtown to call it downtown. $35 million investment, built on the former Queen Anne Candy site on Hoffman Street. 120,000 square feet, 300 plus jobs will be created. Another victim of Illinois high taxes, and another, we're a lucky recipient of another business moving in from Illinois. And, it's obviously distressing for them to see great businesses like Meet by Lynn's moving out and moving into our city. I don't know if people appreciate, I listen to CNBC all the time. I love the stock market, and Meat by Lynn's advertises regularly on CNBC. You'll see their logo, and you'll see fine steakhouses across the country. They're going to be stationed right out of Hammond, Indiana. So it's a great project also. You know, our economic development team, and you also, Phil, did a great job to lure them into Hammond.
Thank you, Mayor. If we had more buildings and more properties, we'd have a lot more Illinois companies moving over as well.
We are landlocked. I mean, to find 15 acres, you have to get creative. And that's, which sort of leads into what we call the haunted house project on the south side of the city.
Absolutely.
It's a 15-acre site, land it's under, and everybody, most people know the property I'm talking about. This is Reaper's Realm. You see it when you drive in off the highway. It was a botanical gardens back in the day. It was like famous. And the people that owned it were famous in America, the first millionaires in Lake County, I believed. And they had this beautiful building right off the highway, and they built it in, I don't know, 20s or 30s, and that's probably the last time it was painted. It's wasting away. And we use it twice a year. It's used as a haunted house, and it's used as a fireworks store. And it employs people during those times. And it just wastes away. And, you know, the people that run it, the Haluska family, are great people. You know, the easiest thing for me to do would be to ignore this potential opportunity for our city. But it's getting harder to ignore that when I have a great councilman in the 4th District. His name is Bill Emerson. He fights hard for his district. And Bill came up to me and pointed something out to me. He said, I don't have a sit-down restaurant in my district, Mayor. And I was like, Bill, get out of here. And I started thinking. I'm like, how about the hot dog place? And he's like, the hot dog place is great. It's not a sit-down restaurant, Mayor. And I'm like, damn, the councilman's right. That's not right. We're the biggest city in Northwest Indiana, and that's one of our highest residential districts, and they don't have a sit-down restaurant. And we have a haunted house that's worth $600,000 sitting on 15 acres in view of 300,000 or 400,000 cars every single day. This property could be developed and worth $30 million, maybe higher. All you have to do is look at what we did over at the old River Park Apartments. We bought a River Park apartment complex for $14 million. We developed it. It's worth about $70 million now. I have an old haunted house worth $600,000, run by people I respect and like, but it's worth $600,000 in view of 400,000 cars a day. A good mayor would say, I appreciate you guys, I respect you guys, but I got to do my job. And that's what I'm doing. I'm doing my job. I'm going to make that $600,000 broken down haunted house worth $30 million. Mark my words, and Councilman Emerson, you're going to have at least 2 restaurants there when I'm done. I promise you, okay? That's why, and thank you. But it sucks when you see a good family like the Haluska family, and you know, because they are renters, and I have to do business with the landowner, not the renter. So I hope that the owner of the land and the Haluska family work something out, because I think they should, but by law, we have to work with the landowners, not the renters. So we're going to do a good job there. It's an important project for the city. And Hammond doesn't have the luxury to sit on property and let it go underutilized. That's a fact. We don't have this luxury. We're not Valparaiso. We're not Crown Point or Munster. We don't have the luxury to have 15 acres sitting there with a stupid haunted house wasting away. We got to do our job. No offense to the family. That was pretty hard. During the State of the City, though. Yeah.
I feel like
you don't hear that very often in the State of the City.
I feel like you got really scared at the haunted house one time, and you're bitter towards them, but
could be something like that. The family that runs it are great people, but we don't have the luxury. That's the bottom line. That's where I'm coming from. Obviously, the Hammond Council has to approve everything I do. We did an initial test with them. It was a 7-2 vote for us to proceed, and that's what we're doing. So.
And sometimes people don't hear the whole story in that. Obviously, the Haluska family does not own the property, and we had been trying to reach out to the owner for years until we got to the point that the city is moving forward today.
True.
So, you mentioned earlier the YMCA, Mayor, which we know is going to be the biggest in the Midwest. If not, I've heard several times the country, but that depends when it's all built out. Mm-hmm. But that ties into the Sportsplex.
Yeah.
Which ties into the food and beverage tax.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Sure. First off, our YMCA will be the biggest in the country by about 1,000 square feet.
Very cool.
We had to add like an extra bathroom or something just to beat Crown Point, but we did it. So that was a gift to Mayor Dave Uran. So we have extra large bathrooms in the new YMCA. You're going to really love them. It's a $70 million project. And I would be completely remiss if I didn't point out that Dean and Barbara White Foundation are spectacularly generous. Understatement of the decade. Spectacularly generous, that's pretty good. They donated, when they did the original Y, Phil, 20 million?
The original Y was a $10 million expansion, and I think they were matching a certain amount the city did. It's been so long, I can't remember the exact
So
numbers.
the Y, we're talking the Y on Southeastern.
Southeastern, correct.
And then, within a couple years of opening this brand new Y, the Dean and Barbara White Foundation comes to the city. Phil, I'm not going to ignore your role in this. Phil has this crazy idea. He gets some ideas sometimes, right? Phil comes up to me, he's like, Mayor, I think we should put destination YMCA at the former Woodmar Mall. And I was like, Phil, that's a great idea. How are we going to pay for it? He's like, we should ask the Dean and Barbara White Foundation. I was like, wow, like, there's no way, Phil. They're not going to fund this project after they've already done the other Y. Well, I'll be damned, right? 50 million-ish that they're putting up for this project.
It's a lot, absolutely.
City Hammond's putting up 10 million additional for this project, and the Dean and Barbara White Foundation and the YMCA are doing the fundraising, and the Dean and Barbara White Foundation are going to be into the city of Hammond $60+ million in a decade, which is spectacular. I just can't emphasize enough how much of a difference that means, and how it shows like we care, even though we're organized down here in Crown Point. We really care about what's going on up there, and I'm not going to stop singing their praises. It's been very generous.
Well, and I just want to say, Mayor, because one of the things that's great about working for you, and hopefully this helps me keep my job, is that you give credit to the team. Obviously, you keep mentioning department heads as we're talking through projects, and that's important.
And when you pick bands for the Festival of the Lakes.
Yes. Whether they fail or they succeed. But
Phil, you got a heavy influence on this year's Festival of the Lakes.
I know, I'm a little nervous about that.
No, you got good bands.
Okay,
Phil knows a lot about music, and he helps us a lot with the fest. We're unveiling our lineup shortly, so.
But what I want to say though, Mayor, is at Woodmar Mall, if it wasn't for your vision of purchasing the property when we were going through litigation with them and taking control, and I brought it up one time that we stopped a few businesses from going to that site because you didn't think it was going to be great for the future of that area.
Yeah.
That's how we got to the point where we can get a YMCA to go there.
I mean, that former Woodmar Mall was appraised at around, it was less than $1 million. And I don't know, what's it worth now? They got the 24-hour emergency room there. They got the Super Walmart. They got the Cabela's. They got the Culver's. They got the car wash. They still have room for another hotel there. I don't know what that's worth, but it's worth a lot more than the former golf course. All due respect, I love to golf. And I love Woodmar Country Club. I have nothing but great memories from this place. But like, Hammond doesn't have that luxury. We need jobs. We need investment. You guys know that. Regardless of where you're from, everybody knows what I'm saying right now is true. So that when we make moves to better utilize our land, I find myself under intense criticism sometimes. I'll take it. That's my job. But Hammond doesn't have that luxury to sit around, I don't think.
I agree, Mayor. So circling back to the food and beverage tax, which is what we were going to talk about with the Sportsplex.
This isn't a lovely topic, but so this wouldn't qualify as a food and beverage tax, but let's say you go to John L's and you have a meal there. Let's say you eat dinner there and you walk out and your meal is $40. You owe 40 cents under our proposal before the General Assembly right now to a food and beverage tax. That's not a lot of money. People don't have to go out to restaurants. I go out to restaurants a lot. Marissa and I are foodies, okay? But that doesn't mean, we choose to go out to restaurants. If the food and beverage tax was too onerous, we don't have to go out and pay it anymore. That tax, 40 cents or 1% of your meals, raises over $2 million every year for the city of Hammond for 20 years. We could do $30, $40 million worth of work now if that passes. And we have some great ideas. One of those ideas, first off, I want to thank our Northwest Indiana delegation for getting that bill through the House. The Senate, it's pending in the Senate right now. I'm being a very good boy, not pissing anybody off because, if I do anything wrong, that thing's dead on arrival right now. So I'm being really nice, but it's an amazing opportunity for our city on a topic that was not going to happen through the county. So. Downtown train station's getting funded through this. It's about an $8 million proposal. We cannot start building the downtown train station until the actual line starts to run, right, Mr. Nolan? But the day it runs, I promise you. And one thing about NICD they've been great with us on is they literally set aside the exact parcel for us. They know where it's going. We know where it's going. It's going to be right by the federal courthouse, right over there by 18th Street. There's going to be a train station there. We'll start the day Mr. Nolan starts that South Lake expansion. When the West Lake expansion starts, we're in the process of designing this right now. How are we going to pay for it? Food and beverage tax. So, and by the way, that's selling really well in the General Assembly because they love the South Shore expansion there as well. So that was also Phil's idea, by the way. Holy crap.
You're giving me way
I'm going to
too
stop
much
giving Phil credit
right now.
here.
I am going to be fired after
That was
this.
your idea. That was a good one.
But all the money has to go towards tourism projects.
Yes, sir.
And so, you know, they say every dollar of tourism gets redistributed several times, which means every hotel and restaurant and small business is going to see exponential benefit from this.
And we have other ideas for the food and beverage money as well. The Sportsplex, for instance. I know Kim Roberts is here from the Hammond Sportsplex. Interesting facts about the Hammond Sportsplex. $1.2 million in revenue last year. $1.2 million in revenue. It's like popcorn and Gatorade. Can you imagine how many people go through there? That's why I put my picture in the front door. I'm like, holy crap, there's a lot of people that go through here. Just kidding. It's appropriate, right? 1.2 million in revenue last year. We are looking, and if you look at the numbers, and we break out the numbers like any business person would, and what you see is Kim is doing really well with our Traditions program. Is that the name of it? With the volleyball? Sorry, the Velocity program, and we're really starting to establish a name for ourselves, and that's where the money is right now. We do well in soccer, we do well in basketball. Our volleyball program is spectacular in the Sportsplex.
Yes.
And I'm not dismissing the other sports and their importance, but it's clearly, it seems like the Sportsplex and volleyball are going hand in glove, and we're in the process of trying to expand that ability so that we could host national type of tournaments and bigger tournaments than we're hosting. And we're hosting college level tournaments already, but we want to get bigger. Down by Indy, they have a real big sports complex. We want to be the other one. And we're the major player in the Chicagoland area already. So we want to use food and beverage tax money to expand on that as well.
I believe we had over 70 plus teams this past weekend there, volleyball teams, and that there was maybe 40 that we had to turn away just because we're not big enough yet.
Yeah.
So this project could put us in position, obviously, for some fantastic tournaments in the future. By the way, if people have questions, Mayor always likes to take one or two questions from the
Sure.
crowd. So if somebody has one, you can
I have
raise
no
your
problem
hand.
with that at all.
But Mayor, why don't we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the quantum corridor?
I would love to.
Please. Tom Docket is here, so I know he'd love for you to.
Okay, Tom Docket, Matt Reardon from the Quantum Corridor. Good to see you guys. I think I was asked a question by a reporter recently, and I don't know if it got printed. It was Jerry Davidge, so if you see it, shout out to Jerry. He said, Mayor, what do you think is going to be the biggest difference in Hammond 10 years from now? And I answered real quick, because I've been getting briefed on this. My economic development team is doing a good job getting me information along with Mr. Dockett and Mr. Reardon about this quantum corridor. There's a data center in Chicago. This is I'm a lay person. I'm explaining something I don't really understand. I'm trying to get heavier on. But we have access through our data center and the population of people we met with the data center, including Mr. Dockett. We have an opportunity to tap in through downtown Hammond into this data center that has quantum level computing, which is unique. There are not many places in America you can get this level of computing power. And one of them is on Cermak Street in Chicago. And they're going to establish a node next to the University of Chicago, which makes sense. Thank you to Matt Wells from One Region for explaining this to me as well. And then once they leave University of Chicago, we're pretty close to Hammond. They want the next node to be in downtown Hammond, which is shockingly amazing. I can't even understand what this will do. But from what I'm being told, it's going to be educators, it's going to be people that need access to this really high-tech, data center. I'm running out.
Sorry.
I should just give the microphone to Dockett at this point.
Is this where your great chief of staff is supposed to chime in?
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's where I didn't.
I was like giving you the signal.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, you're 100% right.
Could you give Tom, help me here. This is unprecedented. Tom Dockett speaking during the...
You understand it as well as I do.
That's it, yeah.
It's a fiber fiber line.
This is Mr. Docket from the Quantum Corridor. Nice to see you, Tom.
Thank you very much.
He built the data center. The first data center in the state of Indiana was built in Hammond, Indiana, through a partnership that City of Hammond did with Tom Docket. So it's good to see you again, Tom.
Thank you. I'm going to cry. This mayor is the best mayor in the United States. I've
Clip
never met
that
a
part
mayor.
right there. Just clap it right there.
So Kevin's going to blush here for a second. So there's a bunch of fiber that runs underneath the toll road. When you guys approved us having a data center in thank you, State Line used to be, we bought the fiber and we made certain that the fiber was connected. What downtown Hammond has done, P&W, Matt Wells, Tom Kean before, Chris, is to make it a fertile ground so we could put in a massive amount of computing into that center. The Roberts Impact Lab will be a big deal, but it doesn't happen but for the investment that you've made in making downtown an area where people want to go to. So this fiber is going to be, think of it, I'll put it on your website. Think of it as a 40 people going through one room, one door. You can't do it. That's what today is. 40 people will be able to enter a room at the same time based upon the fiber that's going in there. It doesn't happen. It, honest to God, doesn't happen, but for the fact that downtown Hammond works. And you guys have done a great job, and we're just going to push it along a little bit and get some scientists to live here.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Tom.
And so if downtown Hammond is considered a node, and Tom has a right-of-way that goes all the way across northern Indiana through the Indiana Toll Road, think of all the potential customers that could be linked up along the Indiana Toll Road to this quantum speed technology. It's an amazing opportunity. And as horrible as the whole situation was with the hospital in downtown Hammond, I always say we don't find acreage available very often in our city, and suddenly we have a proposal from the Quantum Corridor, we have a big acreage of property available in downtown Hammond, which isn't a far stretch from the University of Chicago. I'm very optimistic that we're moving in the right direction in downtown Hammond. I'm very optimistic, so I appreciate everybody's work in this. There's so many people in this room now that had something to do with it, but between the investment made by the federal government, the state of Indiana, Nick D's hard work, the region, RDA, the forum, everybody came together, and now look at what we've done. We're going to spend $1 billion once this project's over, and it's not our money, it's the federal government. It's amazing, so thank you for bringing that up.
And Tom talked about downtown. We'd be remiss if we didn't bring up the Bank Calumet, our first residential market, right? There it is.
Thank you.
I think that was Anastasia that started clapping first.
It's the bank. That's the name of it. It's bank with a C, right?
Correct.
Is it, because like in law, when you see bank with a C, it's called bonk. Is it the bonk or is it the bank?
It's like Crazy Kaplan to use K's. I think they're doing the same concept.
Okay, so you're supposed to say the bank.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the bank. The bank project in downtown Hammond. I have it right here. The bank with a C, $28 million investment. 100 plus units, 7,000 square foot retail space on the bottom floor, 25 permanent jobs, pre-leasing to tenants in the spring of 2024, which is awesome. That building was empty for a long time. Now all of a sudden, $25 million is getting invested into it, and people are going to be able to have the opportunity to live in apartments in downtown Hammond.
First residential apartment building in downtown in how long? Forever? Never? I don't know. I don't remember an apartment building.
New, because, I think it's the first.
Yeah. And I used to work in that building back in the day when it was Bank Calumet.
Yes, sir.
So
Yeah.
it means a lot to a lot of us that, that building was very important. So to see it reused is great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Does anybody have a question? I'm gonna come over if somebody raises their hand.
You got to get away from the mayor table if you're going to give them the ability to answer questions. So,
Where are my planted
They're gonna try to
questions?
embarrass
There were
me.
like 4 of you. I gave you
Yeah.
specific questions.
Hey, I appreciate Scott Miller, Dr. Miller Scott Miller from the Hammond School City being here as superintendent. I think he's doing a great job. I know that, I think one of the challenges we face as a state is the way we fund our public schools, especially in urban cities. I don't think it's fair that we expect us to fund schools through popular vote, because it's not popular when you raise taxes, and sometimes people don't want to do it. But we still have to pay people. I have to pay our police officers next year regardless if we want to pay our taxes or not. And yet we made a change in Indiana that says to fund schools, we're going to have referendums every 7 years, which is absolutely insane. 7 years ago in the city of Hammond, we passed a referendum, operating referendum. Scott Miller, the superintendent of schools took the money from that operating referendum, which is like $13-14 million, and hired a bunch of teachers, which anybody would do if you're given money through a referendum. 7 years later, the voters have a change of mind. We don't want this referendum anymore. So what do? You have to lay off teachers. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And that's what we have to do in Hammond. And it's not fun. I know I'm not in charge of the schools, but I see what what Scott's doing. And I think I keep saying doctor, I apologize. Are you, sorry, I know you're working on it. But yeah, sorry, I should shut up. I see what he's doing. I think he's doing excellent work. I really do. I think that the voters at Hammond made a mistake. It happens sometimes, and I hope that we change that mistake, because I don't want to be, I love being mayor of the city, but I don't think the city of Hammond should be laying off teachers. I don't think any city should be laying off teachers. We're a stable, large city, and I just think that the way we fund our schools is a failure. I really do, and we need to talk to our legislators about that and try to change what's going on in Indiana, and I hope you keep working hard, Scott, because I think you're doing a great job. So. That wasn't in the script, and I want you to know, I don't have to say stuff like that. The smart mayors probably just would not mention anything about schools because I'm not in charge of it. But when you see people trying to do the right thing, you got to support them. He's trying to do the right thing, in my opinion, and I support him 100%. So I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
Mayor, we didn't talk about this, so I'm just going to throw you off guard. But
Okay.
I know the new chancellor for Purdue Northwest couldn't make it, but PNW keeps expanding in our city.
We have two great universities in the city of Hammond we got to keep in mind, all right? Because
Absolutely.
especially when I'm in the state of city, but I went to PNW, but I'm also very lucky in the city of Hammond. We have two great universities. Calumet College also is in our city, and I think both are. Calumet College recently made a large investment into the dormitories in their campus. I know they're filled, and I appreciate Dr. McCormick and what she's doing there. And I know Purdue Northwest with the new chancellor is doing a great job. Chancellor and I have met already. We've had, actually multiple discussions, one of them about the quantum corridor and about roles that Purdue Northwest could play in that. I think that Hammond's real lucky to have two universities both doing really well, and so I'm lucky in that regard. Thank you both for being here. Sometimes I screw up, honestly, because I went to Purdue Northwest. Okay? So sometimes I screw up because I get carried away, and I'm a mayor, and I'm lucky to have both universities in this school, and I want to make that clear. And in fact, I think it was last year, Dr. McCormick didn't even say anything to me. I watched it after I got done, and I was embarrassed at myself for not mentioning the role Calumet College plays in our city as well. So I want to point that out. Sometimes I get carried away as a graduate, but as mayor, I know how important that university is, Dr. McCormick, so I appreciate you being here. So.
And they're both expanding right now. They're both expanding. We're working with Calumet College on some additional things, and obviously PNW.
And funny enough, Phil, Purdue Northwest and Cal College are both very high recipients, two of the top schools of college-bound recipients. So
absolutely.
Right. So.
All right, I'm looking for a question. I need somebody's arm to go up. Oh, there we go.
This is exciting.
All right.
This is exciting. Oh, I thought Jake was asking it.
Oh. Okay.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing, Mayor?
Good. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. I was recently down in Indianapolis last week, Monday, with the legislation, and I am the representative for Northwest Indiana Home Builders Association for the Government Affairs for the IBA. And one of the things that was brought up was the new law, the new residential TIF. Have you had anybody approach you yet for that?
No.
Recently? Yeah, it's in effect, actually. And speaking with all the other constituents in the area and actually the whole state, there's only been one other area that somebody brought to that table, but I know we are here in Lake County. I know down in, actually in Lowell, the town of Lowell was going to be implementing that. So
Well,
I
that's
didn't know if
interesting.
we really kind of need to look into that too, because I think that's another form of that too. The other part question was the Bears. Have they approached you, or you approached them?
I love it. I'm going to tackle the Bears first because they can't tackle anybody. So.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I love the Bears. I love the Bears. I do love the Bears.
Well, they're not coming to Hammond now.
And their defense is really good. Yeah. Honestly, I wish we had enough room for them. I would make a play. I was asking how many acres we would need for the Bears, and it's over 1,000. I mean, it's a large area of land. So, quite frankly, if they were interested in Northwest Indiana, I think the kind of acreage we could offer would only be able to be offered down south or possibly in Gary over by the steel mills in that area. I don't think we can find anything in Hammond. I wish we could, So, but no, that's great. And then the residential TIF, If that passes, I'd be shocked a little bit, and only because the regular TIF, which is vital to cities, is always under attack by the General Assembly, and they don't like TIF for some reason, the supermajority. So I hope you're right. Oh, they have one? Okay, let me check that out, okay? Thank you. Hi, sir. How you doing?
Good afternoon, Mayor. This is Maceo Rainey from the United Way of Northwest Indiana. Just wanted to take a moment.
Can I interrupt you real quick? Funny story. I used to work for NIPSCO, okay? And I was a loaned executive from NIPSCO to the United Way of Porter County. It's where I first started giving public speeches. I remember I had to go speak to the Valparaiso garbage men. And they were like, and I was like pitching them on United Way, and it was like my first speech in public, United Way. I loved working for United Way back then, so thank you for what you do. I appreciate it.
Interesting, and thank you for pointing that out. But I wanted to rise for a moment of privilege to say thank you for recognizing, and in respect to African American Black History Month, to recognize the African American firefighters from the city of Hammond
Thank you.
and their contribution to the city of Hammond for a number of years. That goes back to the first African American firefighter hired in the city of Hammond many years ago, and to recognize their overall contribution was certainly a great episode in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want to say thank you for recognizing those contributions last week.
Thank you for pointing that out. You know, first off, I want to recognize Awana Miller, my department head of community development. Thank you, Awana. She put on that event along with the committee that works real hard. And I appreciate you pointing that out. Believe it or not, we had a little bit of difficulty. I mentioned it in my speech that night. I'm sure you heard it, because we have great firefighters. And the thing about being a firefighter is firefighters work as a team. If it's a car crash, if it's a house fire, they work as a team, right? And I think some of the firefighters were uncomfortable with being pointed out like African-American firefighter, and they felt uncomfortable because they didn't want to go back because they work as a team, right? So we literally begged and pleaded with them and said, we appreciate you, and we're hoping that other young people see you guys and be, inspired to join the fire department as well. And I appreciate those firefighters showing up. And they were uncomfortable with that, and we all learned a lesson about that. But I think after we sat down and explained to them that we appreciate you so much, that's why we're recognizing you, I think they agreed to go along with it. But it was a great event, and obviously we want to do even better than we can with our Hammond Fire Department in regards to diversity. So if you know people that want to be members of the Hammond Firefighter or Police Department, we are hiring, and we pay competitive, good wages. So thank you, sir, for pointing that out. Thank you.
Yep, we're winding down.
What's that?
We're winding down, but the lady asked about the residential TIF.
Yeah.
We didn't bring up the recent article about home sales in the city of Hammond.
I was thinking the same thing. Phil.
Yes.
Good job. There was an article in the Times recently that showed, and this was the head of Ganayar, Pete Novak, who's a good friend of mine. Pete actually started with me when I first became mayor, and now he's the CEO of Ganayar. And
They call it NYRA now.
NYRA, my
Yes.
bad. It's still Ganayar.
Okay, Ganayar it is.
Everybody knows. NYRA, okay. But, and by the way, you say realtors, don't say realtor.
I
Did you know
probably
that?
mess that up all the time.
All right. Hammond home prices the median home price in the city of Hammond over the last 5 years has soared by 82%. In 2018, the median home price in the city of Hammond was $92,000. 2023, $168,000. And this entire article, that was a really great article. I loved it. This is one of my favorite articles, actually. But they were talking about College Bound and the realtor's breakfast, that we do, and all the things that we do to encourage home ownership in the city is really starting to pay off. So I found that particularly satisfying. I think at the end of the day, if homes are selling in the city, our administration is doing the right thing. And when I hate seeing people move out. I take it personally. Somebody's like, hey, Mayor, I'm moving out. I'm moving to Crown Point. And I'm like, Crown Point's lovely, but what did we do wrong? And they're like, sorry, it's this or it's that, right? And I feel bad. And then when that house sells and it's sold for a higher price, and in some cases it didn't even get listed and it was sold before it was listed, I start to feel better about my life, because that's all. I think if you're going to hold a mayor accountable, to my fellow mayors, I think the ultimate way to hold the mayor accountable is to look at what's going on with your home prices. That's like our stock price. We're like CEOs of a corporation, and if your prices are going up and they're selling quickly and it's liquid, you're doing a good job, Mayor. And so I think that could I do a real quick favor? If you're a department head or employee of the city of Hammond or a board member, can you please stand up so you can be recognized? Please. I put all my friends closest to me, so it's like, you guys are the inner ring. It's like, they're great people. They're hired because I think they're the best, and so I'm just real lucky. I've been mayor 21 years. I work with great people. It's the best job I've ever had. Of course, I was in the submarine, so it's comparing it to it's a very low bar, but like, I love working in the city of Hammond. I love working with the people I work with. I feel very lucky that I still hold this job 21 years later. So God bless you guys. Thank you to the Lakeshore Chamber of Commerce for coming out. Appreciate you very much. Hope the meal was good. And I'll be back next year for number 22. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate you, and we appreciate everybody coming out today. But before you say you're looking forward to coming back next year, I think we better ask, do we want them back next year?
I got 4 years already, buddy.
All right, thanks, Mayor, and thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Bob. Thanks, Phil. Great job. To the
careful
MC
leading
today,
today.
Phil Talon. Great job, Phil.
Thank you, Mayor.